Welcome GRD 132 to ex7. This is the Smuttynose label we'll be working on. This is the one after the Children's Place and the Shelby. So it's the third page, so you can open up your file for ex6, but we're going to call this ex7. You don't have to change the name or anything, but open it up. So I'm in Figma. I'm in my files in Figma, so I'm going to double click on this and open up my previous ex6, which does have the Smuttynose one on a third page. So we have Children's Place, we have Shelby that we worked on, and here's Smuttynose. Now this is going to take a little time because we have a script font, we have a serif font, and we have a slab serif font. Both of these are slab serif, so let's zoom in and see what we got here on this Smuttynose Brewing Co. Now we have a script font here. Now we're not going to be able to match this exactly. We're not going to be working on the Y or doing any of the embellishments to it, but we'll try to come close just like we did with the Shelby. And we have brewing here, which if we zoom in, now it's hard to see, but it's actually looks like a serif font. It doesn't look like a slab serif font. It doesn't look like this. If you just look at the R, it looks like it has a little bump there. So it does look like more of a serif font. There's more variation in the thickness and thinness of it. Thin leg here, wider one there. And even the way the W goes in there where it's kind of two V's, meaning it's like a V that's kind of cut off by a V in front of it, and that's about it. So, I could almost make out some serifs in there. So it's not real blocky like this is a slab. So this is a serif font. Now, keep in mind, it's very narrow and it's very condensed. Now, we're not going to worry about that because we're going to squash it once we're done. Now, the only thing in Figma does not have a way to scale text disproportionately without turning it into outlines, meaning you take it away from being a font anymore. It becomes a vector shape. So that's kind of an issue sometimes, but because it works for the web, I guess they don't want you messing with the fonts like that and distorting them. And a lot of designers will say not to distort the font, but sometimes we have to. So we're going to distort it after we're done to match it. So we're going to find a typeface that's wider, that's very close to this. Then we're going to squash it sideways. I say squash it. When I say squash it, I mean vertically scale it. So we're going to make it narrower by squashing it in that direction. And sometimes we could flatten it down, which is squashing it in that direction. But you know what I mean when I say squash it, but we cannot squash. So we're also going to have to match the slab serif. Now, let me zoom out just a little here. I'll do Command minus. Now this is a slab serif, and I could tell because there's very square serifs. There's no bracketing or transition between the serif and the stroke. When I zoom in here, I don't see any bracketing. There's no smoothness in there. And we can look at some of these letters. The W has three serifs on top. So it has kind of a block here, and a block there. Some don't. Some are pointy. Some are just flat on top without that. And the R has half of one over there. It doesn't have one coming across. Let's see what else we could see. I'll zoom out a little bit more. The G has kind of a barb on the top here, I guess. Coming up. It has a little bit of a serif coming up. We can't see what it looks like over there, but it doesn't matter. It's covered up by the whatever the character. And then down here, if we look at these, some interesting things is the C has kind of a barb up here and not a symmetrical beak down here, but it has an A with a kind of large serif on the top on its apex, so it doesn't have a pointy apex it's going across. So that's something to look at. Also, some of these letters, the M does not have a serif down there, and some of these letters, like on the E and the L, if I zoom out and I look at the L here, it has a very high, I'm not even sure what that's called, but the stroke, the terminal, the end of it, it kind of comes up, and it's actually the serif, but the serif comes up very high. Sometimes it's cut off right here, but this one's going up very high. So a couple things we have to look at. We might look at the L, the R, the W, and even the A to try and match a little bit. And we're going to look for slab serifs. The only problem is in Google, they don't have a subcategory for slab serifs to look at. So we have to go through all the serifs. But let's check it out. Then we're going to look at the script one and try to find something for that. So we have a serif, we have a slab serif, and we'll look at the slab serif first because that's the majority. Then we'll look at this one and that one. So let's go to Google Fonts. And remember, just go to Google Fonts, just search Google Fonts. This will come up, close this, and we're going to look at serif because they don't have a slab serif. And I'll type something. I'll put an O, an L, W, an A, maybe an M, and maybe an E. I didn't mention the E, but down here, those are very long kind of serifs on there. So we could look at the E as well, and the M to see if it's pointy down here. So let's check that out. So let's put in an M and then an E. And we'll look at these and we'll make this a little big. We don't want it to break. And right off the bat, we see rubato slab, but that doesn't have very long serifs there on the E or on the L, but we could always fix that. And it doesn't have a block on that, and it doesn't have a block on the top. So rubato slab is a very common one, and we can sometimes modify these. We might have to, but we're going to find something a little closer if we can. So rubato slab, it's not bad. Merriweather, this is more of a standard serif. Actually, this looks more like something that might work for the brewing company one. So we might have to get back to that one. Even this Laura looks like one based on the R that might work for the brewing company. But for now, we're looking for slabs. So here's Noto serif. That's not really a slab. Sometimes it's hard to tell the difference. If you zoom in, there's transitions here, or I guess the brackets are smooth is the proper term. And you know, there's sometimes a fine line between slab serifs, and there's kind of fonts that are in between. This one is a slab, this bitter that I see here, and it's not bad. It doesn't have a serif up here. The M doesn't go all the way down. It doesn't have anything in the E like this one. Now again, in the E, we have something, well, we have a little thing there, and then they have long ones. So maybe, I'm not sure. Sometimes you got to look at some of the other fonts. Let me check out bitter here and see if this might work. I'll go down and look at some bold ones. Now that's not too bad, actually. The M goes all the way down on this one, I think. The M goes all the way down. So that's something. We could always fix that. But the A does not have a serif up there. The W does not have 3 blocks. So I don't know if that's close enough. We might try to find something closer. And I'll keep going down here. Arvo, there's 4 styles. That doesn't have anything on the top or anything there. I don't know. Might find something better than that. Slabo isn't bad. That has the M going all the way down. The serifs on there don't look quite long enough. So we could mark it down. The Zillow isn't bad. It has a really long thing coming out from the E, and it has a little bit of something coming off the A. We could adjust that on the other side. And this, actually on Slabo, I don't like that W. That doesn't look as symmetrical as it is. So we'll keep going here. Brie serif, that's not bad. We could bring those up higher, but it has nothing there. So Brie's not bad. Crete round, probably not. It has some weird thing on the L there. Rocket has, actually it has the A we want, and the E's aren't bad. It does have this little thing on the E we'd have to fix, but the L looks good. It doesn't have anything there, so maybe I'll write down Rocket as one of them. We'll keep going. So Rocket may have a chance. That's not bad. Has the A. The W, we could put something on the W if we had to. What are we doing on the E? There's nothing on the E, so we'd have to kind of cut that off. So again, I don't know if we're going to find anything perfect, because we may not have that exact slab serif. This one isn't bad, except there's only one style, which means it's light. And I'll keep going down here. Elio, not really. Too many things that are different there. Too much of a variation between thick and thin. This isn't bad. Sanchez isn't bad, except we don't have the high L there. We don't have the high serifs on the end. That has some weird looking W. This isn't bad, except it kind of angles out. That L kind of angles out, and the E's kind of angle out. So we'd have to fix that, and we'd still have to put something on the A and something on the W. That's not bad. It has a weird looking R, although it has the right A. And I don't know, it's more typewriter looking. It has some extra serif stuff in there. May not work. This one, again, it kind of angles out there. We could work with a little, but again, nothing perfect I'm seeing here. This isn't bad. The L looks good. The W needs something, and it has a curly R. That won't work. Hanuman. I don't think I saw that one before. Now, it doesn't have the A thing or the W thing, but the E looks pretty good. We'd still have to stretch out those. I'm not sure. So I think I might go with the one. Let's just go with the Rocket. It was R-O-K-K. So let's go with Rocket. Let's do that. And we'll start with that. So let's just get in here, and I'll go down here, and I'll just type Old Brown. We'll work with that first. Old Brown. Now I'm typing in all caps. You could put it in caps. And remember, if you go to your scale tool, you'll scale it up, and it'll go in proportion, because you can't squash it. So we'll bring this up here, and I could even make it a lighter color. Now remember, you have to go back on the move tool to change color. I'll go here for color, give it a fill color. Will it work better with a light color? Maybe. No, that have to be really light. Maybe white. Let's try that. I'll start with that. Now, we mentioned rocket, and there were a couple that we went through here. Here's one, and let me copy this. I'm holding down my Alt key, and I'm going to make a copy. So this one I'm going to do rocket. So I'm going to go down and go where it says enter, and I'll type in ROK, and there's rocket. And there's rocket, and looks like I already had a duplicate there. So there's rocket. That's not bad. We have the L looks okay. The N looks okay. The W needs a serif there, and this one was something with an H. So let's see if I can find something in the H that reminds me. So H, it was like H-A, H-A-N, Hanuman, I think it was. Yeah, just make this a little bolder here and see what they have. There's black. Hanuman isn't bad. Actually, that's not bad. If I move this up here, Hanuman isn't bad. Let's make this rocket in real bold. Let's see what they have. Black. That looks almost too bold, but we are going to make it narrow. Let me go back one, like extra bold. That's not bad. And again, we'd be stretching this out, but we're going to wait until it gets right till we're done, and then we can mess with the anchor points a little. And we'll have to put a serif on there, and we'll have to fix that R a little bit. And this one is about the same. Now, that is as dark as it gets. Now, this looks heavier here, so I think I'm going to go with this one. I think I'm going to go with rocket. So I'm going to get rid of Hanuman, and I'm going to go with the rocket. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to take my scale tool again, and I'm going to scale it up and get it to the size I want. And once I have it at the size I want, I'm going to look at the tracking a little bit, and I think the tracking is okay. And I'm talking about where the letters kind of meet. I think it's okay. Then what I'll do is I'll copy this. Before I turn it into outlines or flatten it or anything, I'm going to copy this, and I'll make one for dog, D-O-G, and I'll go to my scale tool and go back on the scale tool and drag this up really big, and you can see that's kind of a heavier style. I'll go back here. Now let's see if we have something that's extra bold. I'd actually make that black. I think that's going to work out perfect. So dog's going to work out perfect. We're just going to have to squash it a little bit, and that'll be nice. So I don't think that'll be a problem. We're just going to squash it, and we can't do that because if I go here, it just scales the box. So we're not going to do that until we're almost ready to be done here. And let's go with one more here. Let's copy old brown dog, and I'll bring it down here. I'll make it in a different color so I can see it. I'll make it like a green or something for now. And this is going to be American Brown Ale, and I'm just typing in all caps. Now I'm going to scale this down with the scale tool. I'll go down. Now we're going to have to squash this too, so it gets squashed in there. So when we get in here, it's going to have the right height. We could even stretch it this way and then squash it the other way, and then deal with any issues we have in the letters. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go in and do that first, and then we'll deal with the other stuff. So what are we going to do with brown dog here? Well, let's go in here. We can do two things. We can outline stroke, or we could flatten it, and I'm just going to flatten it. I'm going to right click on it and flatten it. They both kind of do the same thing to text. Outline stroke has another issue. So if you right click, they have outline stroke and flatten. Now they have flatten and outline stroke. Both will do the same thing. So let's try flattening it and then click off. Try that again. Flatten. Okay. Now you can see the letters are all outlined and the box goes around. It's no longer a text box, and you see over here, old brown, it has like a vector icon. So it's no longer a typeface. You won't see anything over here. Even if you go back to the arrow, the move tool, you're not going to see anything. You could change the color, but you can't change anything about the type anymore. So if you spelled it wrong, you'd have to fix it or redo it. So I'm going to stretch this out now because it's a graphic. It's no longer text. So remember, we flattened it. So I'm going to stretch it out as best I can. Now you can see the R is not perfect. This is not perfect. The oval is not perfect. That is kind of perfect. And you know what I'm going to do? I want to try something here. I'm going to undo that and undo the flatten. I did Command Z, Command Z. Let me try doing it in black. I thought that was a little too bold, and maybe it's not. Maybe it's not too bold. Let me try this. Let me try it to the black, and I'll right click and I'll flatten, and I'll stretch it in, and then I have to stretch it down. And let's see what this looks like. That might actually work a little better. It's still not perfect. The letters are not perfect, but that works pretty good. The L looks pretty good. Now, we could fix some things in there. We could fix that serif. We could fix this serif. We could make that one wider. It's a lot of work to do in here. For something like this, you'd be better off tracing some of this. But I think what we'll do is just fix the R, and maybe we'll put a serif over the W for this one. So I'm going to go in here. I'll zoom in. Now, you can double click in here. That'll take it. Let me try that again. Double click on here, or hit on this thing. And I have anchor points in there. I'm just going to grab it and drag it in. Try to keep it as straight as I can. Then grab this one, bring it in. That's all I got to do for that. Now, if I wanted to do anything else, you know, I could take this, bring it down. I could take this, bring it out. But I don't want to be doing that to all of them. So I don't want to make this a labor of a lot of extra work moving anchor points around. But you could do that. But you could see what I'm getting at here. This is, if you really wanted this to be accurate, you could go in here and grab all these anchor points. I'm even having a hard time. I got to get way in here to get the anchor point. You could go in here and grab all these. I seem to I'm having a problem undoing constantly. You know, you could grab that. You could grab that. And there's a lot of work to do in here. And I don't want you doing all this work. It doesn't have a purpose yet. We're just kind of identifying fonts. And if we don't have the right font, you know, then we don't have the right font. And then maybe we should trace it or something. So you don't have to do this. Just do the R, because every time I go in here, I'm moving the whole thing. But that's what would be required to do all that, to get it right. Even the oval in there isn't quite right. So a lot of things are not right. And that's okay. Now I'm going to hit done here, and I'll zoom out a little. And that's going to be what we call good enough. We'll call that good enough. And then what we'll do is, once we hit done, we're going to go here to fill. And we're going to take our eyedropper and we're going to fill it with that color, that red color. And you could even turn off the smutty label just to see what it looks like. So we're going to do that. And now this one will be easy because we don't have to do anything here. What we're going to do is we're just going to flatten it. I'm going to right click and choose flatten. And then I'm just going to squash it in. And that's it. And then I'm just going to color it. I'll go to fill. And I'll take the eyedropper and I'll choose that color. So dog is done. Dog is done. Now brown ale down here, because this is so small, I don't know if we have to do a lot in here, but let me zoom in. And it is hard to see right now, so maybe I'll go back and make it white. And I don't think we have to do anything else here except just squash it and then maybe fix the R. Now the E has that thing in there. We'd have to almost get rid of them. I don't know if we had E's anywhere else. I don't think we did. But all those E's in there shouldn't have that thing on. We could maybe fix that, so we'll try to fix that. We'll do some minor stuff in here. And what I'll do is right-click and flatten. And then I'll take this brown ale and squash it. And then bring it down. Now this may not be as bold as we want, but it doesn't look too bad. And I'll get in here and I'll fix the R. Now remember, how do we fix that R? We go in here to this thing, and we could just grab the anchor point, drag it over, grab this anchor point, and drag it over. Now what else did we want to do in here? The E. We can actually grab this one, bring it down, and go on this one and do Shift Delete. And I'll go here, do Shift Delete, and then bring that one up. That wasn't too bad. I think we have another E somewhere. Oh, we have an R here. Grab that, bring it over. Grab that anchor point, bring it over. This one, I'll click on that one, do Shift Delete. I'll go on this one and do Shift Delete, and then just bring it down. And then bring this one up. And now I think it was pointy on the other one. You don't have to make it pointy. You could bring it in a little if you want. That's about it. And I think that's good. I think what we have here is called good enough. In terms of just doing an exercise where we're exploring a little bit, where if we really wanted to make it perfect, we'd trace these things. But we really want to just get used to the differences and making sure that we really identify the differences, even if we can't get it right. Now I'm going to move this up and I'll fill it with that color, whatever that is, kind of a brownish color. And that's good. I'll move it down. And if we hide this, that's what we have so far. Not too bad. So what we're going to do next is we got to get the Brewing Co. and then the Smuttynose. So we're going to tackle that in part 2. So that's the end of part 1 of ex7, our logo type matching old brown dog ale. We're going to do the Brewing Co. and Smuttynose. Hopefully we could do those in one video. So we'll try to do that in part 2.